Hey guys, it's BearInABackpack, and today I'm proud to bring you guys a preview of Book of Demons, developed and published by ThinkTrunk. So let's get started. Alright, so once you start the game, you'll be greeted by this page. Now for me, since I've already played through the entire game, I have a fully leveled, well I shouldn't say fully leveled, but at least completed character, Modulfer. He's a level 28 warrior, and one of 3 playable characters. So, as of right now, as of the making of this particular video, the warrior character and the mage character are both available to play. I myself have not quite played out the mage character yet, as in fact, as I loaded this up today, it was a new character. However, if you guys want me to go a little bit deeper into that, let me know in the comments, and I can update the video to add that in. There's also a third character choice of the Rogue, which will be coming soon. It is not quite released yet, but when it does come out, I'm sure it'll be really fun, because it looks like it has the ability to give you some ranged abilities outside of your cards. Now, what I'm saying, it probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense at the moment, because we haven't really gotten too far into the game, but you'll see in just a moment how having a little bit of ranged ability might come in handy. So, for the purposes of being able to show you everything I want to show you, I think I'm going to pick my high-level warrior here, so that way you can see a little bit of everything. We're going to enter the town. So, as you can see at the bottom, I have all these different cards, such as like Mighty Blow, Blade Storm, a Health Potion, Amulet of Mana, Blood Armor, Shadow Sword. All of these cards give you abilities that you use in the game to defeat monsters or heal yourself, etc., etc. Now, I think the best way to do it is to first start by actually playing through one of the levels. That way, you'll get an idea of how the cards are used, what the levels look like, basics of gameplay, stuff like that. Then, we'll come back to the town area to show what each of these characters gives you. It'll probably make a lot more sense if we do that first. So, to play, all you do is click on the shadowy church here. So, at this point, since I beat the game, you can see that you have to progress all the way through to the depths of hell to fight the evil demon lord. So if you start up here, you start at the very beginning, and you get these first couple levels here, and then you start progressing your way down and down and down. There's actually 3 separate, I guess, areas in the game. So there's this beginning area way up here. It's kind of like a crypt area. Then you get to this area, which is kind of like a dungeon-y kind of thing. And finally, hell itself, where you fight the demons of hell to be able to purge the evil from the land forever. Yeah, epic, right? So normally, right about here, you fight the archdemon. Now, unfortunately, having played through this already, the bosses aren't available to be fought at this moment. Eventually, they will have the ability for you to go back and fight the bosses again. So what I'm going to do is just play through some of the free play mode that you unlock after beating the game. So why don't we get started? You have the ability, of course, to choose your difficulty. I'm just going to go with normal. Now, at this point, I want to point out something that's really, really cool about Book of Demons. So, normally in games like this, where it's kind of like a dungeon crawler hack and slash kind of thing, right? You may not always have time to play through all the games. Let's say you only have, like, maybe 10 minutes, right? Well, some of these games, you know, like, let's take Path of Exile, for instance. If you're not familiar with it, it's a hack and slash MMO type game where you go around and, as you might imagine in an RPG hack and slash, beat up all kinds of monsters and get quests and quests and quests, right? Well, in that game, it may take you quite a while to clear an area. We're talking like an hour or more. In this game, which I think is amazing, is that you are able to pick how long you want to be playing for. So you can pick a very, very small dungeon if you only have, let's say, 10 minutes. So, 6 minutes. All right, so I can get through the entire thing in 6 minutes. Or, if you have a lot of time, boom, look at that. A whole bunch more rooms, and you can play for 33 minutes. So it gives you an estimate of how long you're going to be playing so that you can pick the room that works best for you. So I think for the purposes of this, I'm just going to do a small room, give you guys a little taste of it, and then go back to the town to explain some of that stuff. Now, of course, if you play a small game, you don't get quite as many rewards or as much progress through the dungeon, or anywhere near as much gold as if you play one of the larger games. Look at that. Look how much gold we got just for making it a big game. In fact, a very big game gives us 75% progress, 21 plus awards, and 57,000 gold, as opposed to just 4 rewards, 15% progress, and 12,000 gold if we play very small. But like I said, it's all about how much time you have to play. So let's go ahead and start a very small mission and hop right into it. So before you go into it here, you can also see what kinds of monsters you're going to be facing. Now, you only get to see them once you've unlocked them or encountered them before. So since I played everything, I can see that we're going to have a Schizofargoat, a Loony Ghost, an Arachnad, and a Corrupted Arachnod. Alright, so let's hop in and start beating some monsters. So, all of the dungeon levels are procedurally generated, right? So that means that there's a huge amount of replayability too, especially in the free play mode. You can keep playing and playing and playing and get more and more cards as you go and more rewards. So I think that's a pretty decent thing to have in the game, just to keep it interesting. So, before we get too far, let's go ahead and explain some of the basics of gameplay. So as you see, it looks like I'm bound to this path, and you would be correct. I can only move along the path with the footsteps on it, which are only made after I pass them. I can only move along this path. So if I want to go left or right, I can't just run around everywhere. Like, for instance, I can't get to that path until I go all the way out and around. Ow, 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 ow. Ah! Already getting attacked. Oh, I hate these things. So the Arachnods, some of the bigger ones, when you kill them, they actually split into smaller ones and continue splitting and splitting and splitting. So you can quickly get overwhelmed. Luckily, I have a couple different things up my sleeve that give me a little bit of a bonus against those types of things. Aha! Take that! So yeah, so I can only move where the path lets me, which does add a little bit of sense of dread to it, because you're kind of restricted where you can go. Normally you could just run away from them and it'd be no problem, but since you're stuck on the path, if there's a creature in your way, you can't move past them, so sometimes you get stuck. So that forces you to have to try and fight your way out of certain situations. So in addition to being able to only move on that, if you want to attack things, you can just click on them. So kind of point and clicky hack and slash kind of thing. Oh, that triggered a guy. Voila, and you just click on them, and they go away. Now, in addition to clicking on them, if you don't want to click, you can just let go, and your guy will auto-attack. So, for instance, if I go this way, and just stop... Oh, geez, it's a special guy. Well, how about that? Cool. All right. Ooh, so he cursed my cards. That's not good. So I can't actually use those because he's disabled them, so I have to beat him first. But yeah, so if I just sit here, my guy will automatically attack him. However, as you notice, it's a lot slower. So it's usually better to either click or click and hold, which will do the same thing, to keep attacking him. Now, bosses usually come in several different segments. While we're here with the boss, might as well explain it. So as you see, I've got him to his third segment here, right? So right now, his hearts are frozen over, which means he can only really be damaged well by fire attacks. Or you can continually damage him, it just takes a lot longer with normal attacks. So voila, now that I've finished all of his forms, he explodes, and I get my cards back that he cursed, and a special card for defeating him, a rune card. We'll explain what those do later. They're useful for upgrading your other cards, and we'll show you a little bit of that. So all you have to do to pick up most items is just kind of mouse over them and pick them up. For special items, such as potions and cards, you actually have to click them. Ooh, got another moon rune. Look at that. After this point, it's fairly self-explanatory. Now, the thing I haven't quite used yet is the special ability, or the cards. They're really a huge part of the game. They're like the kind of a big focus of it. So, a big part of the game are the cards at your disposal. Now, they're split into 3 different types. You have the artifact cards, these are the ones in green here. You have the item cards, which are the ones in red. And you have spell cards, which are the ones in blue. Spell cards, like heal, throw, and disarmor, are different cards you can use during battle to either heal yourself, attack enemies, or otherwise sway the way battle is going. Item cards are things like mana potions and health potions that help you during battle, or can damage enemies in the case of poison bombs, fire bombs, or ice bombs. Now, finally, you have the artifact cards, which are equipable items that make you stronger or make you more powerful in general. So, for instance, the Phantom Ring. Chance to hit ghosts goes up by 20%, your chance to spawn mana when dispelling monster spells goes up by 25%, and your chance to reflect, slow, and freeze effects goes up by 20%. So these are all buffs that make your character stronger and stronger. Now, since I've been playing this game a while, I have a lot of cards. Normally, as you play through the game, you only start with maybe a couple cards. I think one of the first cards I got was the Shadow Sword, which grants me an extra attack. So if you've noticed, if you've been seeing a whole bunch of enemies getting attacked all at once, well, that's because of Shadow Sword. Normally, you can only attack one enemy at a time, the one you're either clicking on, or it decides to auto-attack for you. But with Shadow Sword, I can attack a whole bunch of people at once, which is super helpful when you're being crowded by a whole bunch of enemies. So now that we've covered a little bit of basics about the cards, let's go ahead and finish out this dungeon. What? So apparently there's a ranged guy chucking spears at me, so that's not good. So as you might notice, each of these enemies have a number of hearts over them. That's how much damage I have to do to destroy them. The little enemies, they don't even show up hearts because they only have one, so as soon as you hit them, they're gone. Voila, gone. No big deal. Now, if you've noticed, some of them have turned blue. That's because I'm currently using the Frozen Flail. So this one has a elemental effect, which freezes enemies and slows them down. It has a chance of actually doing that. Now, it doesn't always do it, but sometimes it does. So, why don't I go ahead and use one of my power abilities? So we're going to use Blade Storm, right? Attacks all monsters in my proximity. So I'm being currently crowded, right? So if I press 2, boom, hits all of them. And I can even use Mighty Blow to deal a ton of damage all at once. So it's really about taking advantage of your abilities and making sure you're doing as much damage as possible to get yourself out of sticky situations. Whew. And all done. Another thing you may have noticed is that the ground here, notice how the footprints have turned gold. When the footprints have turned gold, it means you have explored that area entirely. It means you've found all the items, killed all the enemies, everything like that. So it's a good way to let you know whether or not you found everything you needed to. So each of the 3 areas of the game have their own unique enemies you'll find within them. So in the beginning part, you actually fight quite a few skeletons in the kind of crypt area. In the dungeony area, you actually fight a lot of, I guess those like goat people you've been seeing off and on. I guess they're rams, something like that. You fight a lot of those guys. And in the hell area, as you might imagine, you fight almost exclusively demons. And they are extremely powerful and, surprise, surprise, do a lot of fire damage. So having ice weapons, like the one I have equipped right now, is super helpful. So, now that we've cleared everything, you get this little level clear thing, and it'll let you know that you're clear to go on to the next level because you've gotten everything in this level. Alright, so as you see, we've cleared out all of the enemies here. If we didn't, there'd still be one of these little cutouts, like this or this, up here, letting us know we didn't actually kill all the enemies in there. Now, if you do manage to collect all the treasure, kill all the enemies, and completely clear all the levels in a certain area, you'll get an extra bonus when you move on to the next segment of the storyline. Now, if you notice, some of these enemies do have ranged attacks. Being stuck on this grid, that can be really annoying because what will end up happening is you'll be just out of range to be able to attack them yourself, so they can attack you from across the way like this, right? See, I'm already taking attacks from this guy with spears, even though I can't even see him yet. So you may have noticed that we just encountered the Sad Ghost, so that's a boss character. So, if you notice, this character here has the shield up right below their health, right? If you notice, I'm not actually doing any damage. It's continually blocked by him. That's because I need to destroy the shield before I can deal any damage to him. To do that, you just click on it. Boom. And we're also going to interrupt his spellcasting ability. No spells for you! Now, since I don't have my fire weapon equipped, it takes a lot more damage to kill him. It's a lot less efficient. Oh, gotta interrupt him again. Ah, come on. Ah, he's frozen me. Alright, got him. Oh, nope, there he is. He's still alive. He is tricky. So he's got one more form we got to get rid of before we can fully take him down.
Go to hell.
Aha! And he is destroyed. Let's see, what do we get for it? Ooh, a whole bunch of rewards. Cool. So, special rewards you get, you can retrieve later in the town, and they go into that magical cauldron there. Now, it looks like I have an extra level, so I'm going to show you guys what happens when you try to level. So, I'm going to level up, and I can choose between health and mana. Now, don't be worried. It's not that you have to permanently give up the other one. If you choose health, for instance, the mana crystal goes into the cauldron, which you can retrieve at the main base, and you pay for the ability to retrieve all the items from the cauldron. Now, you use your in-game currency to do that, so don't worry, you don't have to pay real money to retrieve them. But there's a trick with the cauldron. Alright, so now that we've fully cleared both levels, we're ready to finish this quest. Voila! So, we get these extra rewards, the Heart of Iron, Clean Sweep, and Ruthless Blade, for achieving special things during our playthrough. So for instance, the Ruthless Blade killed every single enemy, the Clean Sweep swept all levels clean, and Heart of Iron, I didn't die while playing it. Now that we're back in the town, let's explain a little bit about what each and every one of these characters does. So we're going to start with the Healer. At any point during the mission, as long as you don't die, you can actually return all the way back to town and get health and mana from the Healer to help heal yourself up before going back into the dungeon to keep going and keep trying to defeat the level. So that's super helpful. The Barmaid is where you can access your magical cauldron and retrieve golden keys, which you can use to fight the bosses again once you've beaten them. The Magic Cauldron is where all of your quest rewards and the mana and life tokens that you don't get when choosing one or the other when leveling up go into here. Now, every time you buy the cauldron, it gets more and more expensive, so you do have to take that into account when deciding whether or not you want to buy it, or wait for more prizes to get in there before buying out. The downside of waiting to buy out is if at any point you die in the dungeon, everything you've saved in the cauldron is gone for good. That really forces you to decide whether or not you want to hold out to try and get better and better prizes, or take what you have before you lose everything. So, for the purposes of illustrating what I mean by this, I have enough money, I'm going to buy one of the cauldrons. So, I get the 2 mana crystals and the 1 life that I got from the level ups, so those go into my permanent health and mana pools. In addition, I get rewards. So, looks like I get 3,000 gold, some XP, and a card. So let's find out what it is. Ooh, it's an unidentified card. Well good, that's a perfect segue to then go to the Sage. What the Sage does is identify unidentified cards for you for a small price of about 1,000 gold. So, we just got one from the Barmaid, so what we're going to do is we're going to click on it and click Identify. So, we got a rune card. So we can use these to upgrade our cards that we have already claimed within the dungeons at, surprise, surprise, the next character, the Fortune Teller. So the Fortune Teller allows you to charge your cards, and when they say charge, that corresponds to the cards like the Health Potion or the Mana Potion. They have a certain amount of charges shown in the bottom. See the ×4? That means I have 4 charges of it. However, if I want to charge that up, I click on it, charge, and for a small price, I can add more charges, up to a max that's dependent upon the card's level. Now, card's level, you may be asking, what is that? What does that have to do with anything? So, if we go into the upgrade card section, you can see here that there's a number of stars on the left of every card. What that means is that's the card's overall level. So this is a level 1, this is a level 2, these ones, like my Health Potion, are level 3, max level. Every time you upgrade a card, it becomes better and gives you better bonuses and is overall more powerful. So when I first got the Health Potion, it wouldn't really heal all that much, but it was still useful. But upgrading it now, it heals a total of 60 hearts instantly. So that's the benefit of upgrading your cards. It makes them more powerful and you more able to defend yourself and take down monsters in the dungeons. So for example, let's say I want to upgrade my bloody armor. First, I need to have the runes that you see here, which luckily I do. So I'm going to click on the slots, add in those runes, and for 10,000 gold, boom, upgrade it. And just like that, I now have the level 3 bloody armor. So now my chance to spawn hearts when being hit is 60%, which is a lot higher than it used to be. One other thing to point out about upgrading your cards is in the case of cards like these equipable cards, the artifact cards, it increases the mana cost that's needed to be able to use them. Now, in the case of the spell cards, the reason they're blue is that is instant mana. You spend it and it's gone from your mana pool, and then you can regain it later. The green cards, the artifact cards, those ones are permanently removed from your mana pool, hence why my mana color here is split between blue and green. The green is permanently reserved for my equipped items. I can't regain that, I can't really lose it, but it's not of use to me. I can't pull from it when trying to use spell cards. All that's available to me is the blue, which is 20 of the total of 77 mana points. So using that 20, that's what I use to use spells. So it's important to note that every time you increase the power of one of your artifact cards, the cost to you of your mana pool will go up. Notice that I had to use runes to be able to upgrade the cards. If you don't have any runes, what you can do, if you have the most basic ones, which are the sun runes and the moon runes, they're the most likely to be dropped, and you'll get them quite often. You can use them to attain other runes. So for instance, I don't have any of the death runes, but I can make one if I grab 2 moon runes and fuse them together. Boom, I have a death rune. So it allows you to be able to get things without necessarily having to keep playing and playing and playing and hope they drop. So that way you can make all the runes you need to be able to upgrade your cards. Initially, when you play the game, you only have a couple slots to actually put cards in. If you notice, I have a whole bunch of cards. One last thing to mention about the Sage is you can use the unlock card slot ability to be able to add slots and allow you to play more cards during gameplay. However, it does get pretty spendy, so you have to play more and more to be able to unlock more and more slots, but they are infinitely valuable to you if you do that. At any time, if you want to switch out some of your cards, you can just go into your card deck by clicking this button here, and you can see all the cards available to you, and you can switch out your artifacts, your items, your spells, anything you want, to customize your hand to best suit your playstyle. So to give you guys an idea what it's like just starting the game, I'm actually going to play as the mage character temporarily here. So let's go ahead and create a character here. Balico. I actually like that name. We're going to go with that. Now, unlike once you have everything unlocked, when you first start the game, you have nothing, and I mean nothing. You have no spell cards, you have very low health and low mana, and you have to fight your way with just your basic attack until you earn more cards. Every time you play through a set of levels, you'll unlock more and more of the overall dungeon, which will get you closer and closer to fighting each boss, and finally ending with the final boss all the way at the bottom. So, let's go ahead and start this first section here.
The dead seem to be particularly lively today.
So unlike the warrior, the mage character has the ability to use ranged attacks like this, right? Let's see, how far is his range? Quite a ways. So when you're just starting out, you don't really have any abilities whatsoever. You just have your basic attack, and that's about all. However, as you go through the game and start picking up cards, you'll unlock items, artifacts, and spells. So look, I've got my first card, the health potion. So now at this point, I'm able to heal myself up mid-combat if I need to, without having to rely upon these wells here that can give you health or mana, depending on the color.
Well, the sanctity of this place has been fouled.
Woo! Leveled up. So, as we've seen, each of the different classes has their own particular playstyle. The warrior is kind of meant for getting up in people's faces and hitting with the sword, and using other relatively melee-focused abilities. Whereas the mage character is more built to be a little bit back from the enemies and uses his magic abilities to deal damage. In addition, they both have drastically different cards at their disposal. The warrior character, for instance, has melee-focused, kind of heavy damage, high-impact cards, whereas the mage character is going to have magic-based cards, such as the fireball, that does a lot of damage to a whole bunch of enemies. So this adds additional replayability to the game, whilst keeping it different between character to character, and giving each of them their own feel for playing through the game with them. I'm excited to see what they do with the rogue. It's not quite released yet as of making this video, but I'm sure it'll be very interesting. From the little bit I've played with the mage, I'm really happy with it, and I bet you the rogue will be just as fun to play. Alright guys, well I think that's a pretty good preview of Book of Demons by ThinkTrunk. If you really liked it, I would suggest going to Steam and checking it out there. You can get both a demo of the game, and if you really like it, you can purchase it there and start playing through it yourself. I would recommend it. It's a super fun game. Alright guys, see you next time.